continues tonight over the unprecedented allegations by President Trump that former President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. The accusation has been met with everything from skepticism to scathing rebuke. Trump made the claim during a series of tweets on Saturday and is now pushing for an investigation. According to ABC News, sources say that FBI Director James Comey asked the Justice Department to publicly refute Trump's allegations, which President Obama denies. Still, the Trump administration continues to make the claim.
I think he firmly believes that this is a storyline that has been reported pretty widely by quite a few outlets.
Sarah, I have got to stop you right there. Every single article you just mentioned does not back up the president's claim.
By law, the president cannot order a wiretap. Such requests are made and approved through the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, or FISA.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Monday night. And we begin tonight with that explosive claim from President Trump that President Obama wiretapped him before the election. Tonight, more than 48 hours later, still no evidence from the White House to support the president's claim. But his tweets over the weekend stated it as fact. The president tweeting, quote, "Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory." Tonight, reaction from President Obama. President Trump's own FBI director reportedly stunned, pushing back. And this evening, the former director of national intelligence right here. Was there a wiretap? We begin with ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross.
There is still no proof tonight, none, to back up President Trump's Twitter claims that the FBI bugged Trump Tower on orders of President Obama. Still, the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, today seemed to double down on the unfounded assertions in an off-camera briefing.
There's no question that something happened. The question is it surveillance? Is it a wiretap or whatever?
But the president's tweets from the private Palm Beach club he calls the Winter White House were unequivocal, stated as a fact, not a question. Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. That was followed by 3 more presidential outbursts taking on President Obama and misspelling tap. How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate, bad or sick guy. Today, the U.S. intelligence community did its own doubling down to refute the president, with senior FBI officials encouraging the former director of national intelligence to speak out.
There was no wiretap against Trump Tower during the campaign conducted by any part of the national intelligence community.
None at all.
None at all.
And James Clapper, who served under President Obama, says President Trump could have found that out for himself with one phone call.
I think the Department of Justice probably could clear this up in a heartbeat.
Instead, the president seems to have relied on an article posted Friday by the right-wing Breitbart website, detailing the allegations of a conspiracy theory-loving radio talk show host, Mark Levin.
How many of Trump's people were eavesdropped on? How many had their conversations intercepted, recorded, transcribed? Because this, ladies and gentlemen, is the big scandal.
The White House will not say where the president got his information. And spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders tried to suddenly qualify what the president stated as fact when pressed by Martha Raddatz.
The president of the United States is accusing the former president of wiretapping him.
I think that this is, again, something that if this happened, Martha,
If.
I agree.
It all comes with the White House engulfed by the growing controversy over his advisor's contacts with Russia. Cameras captured a heated meeting Friday in the Oval Office. Animated chief strategist Steve Bannon, the president's daughter Ivanka. Insiders told ABC News Trump went ballistic. As for President Barack Obama, he seemed unfazed by the Trump Twitter attacks, getting a round of applause as he and Mrs. Obama arrived at the National Gallery of Art in Washington over the weekend. His spokesman says the allegations from President Trump are completely false.
So let's go live to Brian Ross at the Justice Department tonight. And Brian, more than 48 hours now with no proof from this White House?
That's right, David, and it's a familiar story with Donald Trump. He spent years fueling a right-wing theory that Barack Obama was not an American citizen. No proof. More recently, he claimed 3 million people voted illegally against him. No proof. And now this Twitter claim about the FBI and wiretapping. Once again, David, no proof.
But Brian, the White House was asked today, after these tweets on Saturday, did the president simply reach out? Did he call the FBI director?
Well, Press Secretary Sean Spicer says to the best of his knowledge, he did not, David.
Brian Ross leading us off tonight from the Justice Department. Brian, thank you. So we have now heard from the former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, right here tonight. Now we turn to FBI Director James Comey, who, of course, now reports to President Trump. Sources telling ABC News that Comey has asked the Justice Department to speak out, to reject President Trump's claim. ABC senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas on the FBI director now at odds with the president he serves.
Tonight, that stunning request. FBI Director James Comey asking that the Justice Department publicly refute President Trump's wiretapping claim.
Does President Trump accept the FBI director's denial?
You know, I don't think he does, George.
So far, no answer from the Justice Department. Matters complicated because Attorney General Jeff Sessions just recused himself from any investigations tied to the 2016 campaign.
Since I had involvement with the campaign, I should not be involved in any campaign investigation.
Sources say the FBI director is deeply concerned that Trump's allegation is not only false, but suggests that the FBI acted improperly and pursued a politically motivated investigation.
Oh, and there's...
As a result, this moment...
He's become more famous than me.
Trump all but embracing the FBI director feels light years away, with Comey now at odds with the administration. Comey, no stranger to political firestorms, reignited the Hillary Clinton email probe only 11 days before the election, but nothing significant was found.
And Pierre Thomas joins us now live from the FBI. And Director Comey so far not making an official statement about the wiretap allegations, Pierre?
No statement so far. We're told he's waiting on the Deputy Attorney General to give him an answer, David.
Pierre Thomas with us live tonight. Pierre, our thanks to you as well. So let's get right to our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, tonight, because I'm sure people at home have a lot of questions here. First, a very basic question. President Obama, could he have single-handedly ordered a wiretap on then-candidate Trump?
Single-handedly? No. Typically, this goes through the Justice Department. That's where it would start. And in a case like this, you'd be talking about also going to a secret court, the FISA court, which would mean that a judge would also have to sign off on it. So I don't see a scenario whereby President Obama could have done this by himself.
So we saw the report out there today, President Trump saying he's confident he'll be proven right. Is there any scenario where this wiretapping could have occurred that we just haven't hit on yet?
I don't think so. When you get the sort of denials that we're getting. I mean, James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, you heard him there saying there was no wiretap against Trump Tower during the campaign conducted by any part of the national intelligence community. Then you have James Comey, who was no friend to Hillary Clinton during this campaign, according to Democrats, also saying this did not happen. So if President Trump is getting this information from talk radio or from a website, then this is entirely new territory.
All right, Dan Abrams with us here tonight. Dan, thanks to you.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. President Trump still offering no proof to support the unprecedented and inflammatory accusations he made on Twitter this weekend that President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower. FBI Director James Comey has reportedly asked the Department of Justice to publicly refute the claim, and other intelligence officials have rejected the allegations as well. Will there now be a congressional investigation? Here's ABC's David Wright.
Even for a White House that's developed a reputation for alternative facts.
The bombshell accusation.
President Trump lashes out at his predecessor, accusing President Obama of tapping his phones.
The controversy that erupted this weekend was of an entirely different magnitude. First thing Saturday morning at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump tweeted out a plot worthy of a Tom Clancy novel. Trump flat out accused Obama of tapping the wires here at Trump Tower, accusing the former president of spying on him on the eve of the election. Terrible, he tweeted. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. Offering no evidence whatsoever, Trump accused his predecessor of meddling in the very sacred election process. Bad or sick guy.
If this happened, Martha,
If.
I agree.
Why is the president saying it did happen?
Look, I think he is going off of information that he's seen that has led him to believe that this is a very real potential.
President Obama's spokesman flatly denied it. The FBI director asked the Justice Department to publicly refute it. And the former director of national intelligence came out to deny it as well.
There was no wiretap against Trump Tower during the campaign conducted by any part of the national intelligence community.
And a president can't just order a wiretap. The process has legal safeguards and creates a paper trail.
This is something that goes through the Justice Department. And typically, they would then take it to a secret court, the FISA court, which would mean a judge would also sign off on it. So the notion that President Obama single-handedly decided to wiretap Donald Trump is basically nonsense.
None of that seems to trouble the White House. President Trump is now calling for a congressional investigation.
It's important to note that there's an equally outlandish narrative on the other side.
The other narrative, also in the mix, is that the Trump campaign may have colluded with the Russian government to meddle in the 2016 election. Again, allegedly. No proof of that either. No smoking gun of collusion. But more than a little smoke.
In terms of the Russian intrusion into the election, you stand by all that you've said about it?
Absolutely.
There is a full FBI investigation underway now into whether the Russians or how the Russians meddled in the U.S. elections. But according to Jim Clapper, he told us today when he left in mid-January, at that point he said he knew of no evidence whatsoever that showed collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians.
Best anyone can tell, the president's wiretapping tweets seem to trace back to a theory put forward last Thursday by conservative talk radio host Mark Levin.
Barack Obama and his surrogates who were supporting Hillary Clinton and their party, the Democrat Party, who were using the instrumentalities of the federal government, intelligence activities, to surveil members of the Trump campaign.
The next day, Breitbart Media jumped on the story. That Breitbart article made the rounds in the White House. We now know from White House sources that Trump went off to Palm Beach this weekend in a foul mood, erupting in anger at his senior staff in a tense Oval Office meeting. A TV camera positioned in the Rose Garden to film the president's departure caught a glimpse of the scene. You can see Steve Bannon there, gesturing. Sources say Trump was angry about the controversy surrounding his attorney general. Democrats have been calling for Jeff Sessions to resign ever since he admitted that he didn't tell the Senate Judiciary Committee the truth about his contacts with Russian officials.
If there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
Last week, the Washington Post broke the news that he did, in fact, meet more than once with the Russian ambassador. So Sessions changed his story.
In retrospect, if I should have slowed down and said, but I did meet one Russian official a couple of times, that would be the ambassador.
Trump publicly stuck by Sessions despite the controversy.
Did Sessions recuse himself from investigations into your campaign in Russia?
I don't think so at all.
But hours later,
I have now decided to recuse myself from any existing or future investigations of any matter relating in any way to the campaigns for President of the United States.
White House sources tell ABC News that's why the president was furious at that Oval Office meeting.
In the president's mind, this is weakness. This is acting guilty, acting like you have done something wrong. Because in his mind, it makes Sessions look guilty, and he thinks it was just an absolutely terrible mistake.
The bottom line of this meeting, from what your sources are saying, is that Reince Priebus, the chief of staff, and Steve Bannon, the senior advisor, suddenly decide they're not going to go on Air Force One?
Leaves without his two top people on the trip.
It's beginning to sound like an episode of Survivor. These two guys temporarily voted off the island.
Yes.
Travis spoken.
Two of Trump's most trusted aides temporarily sidelined, although neither of them got voted off the island.
And the end result of this is that the president is left to his own device.
Right, so we have this, so his own tweetable device.
Those tweets so explosive that cleaning up after them has become a full-time job for the West Wing. Today on the morning shows,
I think the bigger question here is let's let the House Intelligence Committee do its job, George. They committed over the...
And all day long on cable.
If the President of the United States said that, he's got his reasons to say it. He's got some convincing evidence that that took place.
The talking points seem to be that he's the president. He must know what he's talking about. Today's White House daily briefing a bit unusual as a result.
So these cameras outside the White House right now. We're not allowed into the briefing room today for the gaggle because cameras weren't allowed for the gaggle with Sean Spicer today. That's different.
Inside the briefing room, Sean Spicer stuck to the party line.
I'm just going to let the tweet speak for itself. There's no question that something happened. The question is it surveillance? Is it a wiretap or whatever?
All they'll say right now is that the president's statement speaks for itself. Big deflections from the White House.
The key here is, one of the points is, Donald Trump has a track record of doing just this kind of thing. He spent years as a private citizen fueling the right-wing theory that Barack Obama was not an American citizen. After the election, he claimed there were 3 million people who voted illegally against him. No proof for the birther issue. And now, once again, with the FBI and the wiretaps, no proof.
The maelstrom is all but eclipsing other important news. A new temporary travel ban, the long-awaited Obamacare replacement proposal, and more North Korean missile launches. Instead of getting to the bottom of all that, it seems half of Washington is off chasing Russians, the other chasing the ex-president and a wiretap that might not exist. All of it eroding trust, spreading doubts, and clouding some very important issues. I'm David Wright for Nightline in New York.